Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Disney Publishing 2025 Preview. I am Ronny Khuri, Senior Editor, Books for Youth at Booklist. My pronouns are he and him. And before we begin, I will go over some technical details. If you're in the audience, you are in listen-only mode, but we definitely welcome any questions that you may have. So on the bottom of your Zoom screen is a toolbar with a button for Q&A. If you have a question or if you need technical assistance, you can just click Q&A and type your message into the box that pops up. We at Booklist will do our best to respond to all of the tech-related questions, and we will be passing along all of the other questions to today's panelists. If we have time, we will get some of those questions in live on the air, but if we don't have time, they will still be able to see your questions and have a chance to respond to them after the webinar. We also offer closed captioning on all of our webinars. So if you would like to enable or disable them on your screen, please look for and click the Show Captions icon on that toolbar at the bottom of Zoom. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of them at any time by selecting Caption Settings. Finally, Booklist expects all participants to maintain an atmosphere of respect, and anyone who violates this standard of behavior may, at the discretion of the organizers, be immediately removed. Okay, so we have a wonderful pair of panels for you today. The first half of our hour will be with a panel of creators who are part of the new Planet Possible line of books. The second half will be a panel looking at some exciting new graphic novel series. And first, I will introduce you to Planet Possible and its inaugural titles and their creators. First, a word about Planet Possible. Disney Planet Possible books are meant to inspire and empower young readers to take care of our planet by telling stories that celebrate advocacy, conservation, and stewardship. All of these inaugural titles are available now, I believe, and you can find more information about Planet Possible by heading to the link shown at the bottom of the screen there. And now I will introduce our panelists, and as I introduce you, you're welcome to turn on your camera and join us. First up, we have Ryan T. Higgins. Ryan is the author and illustrator of the New York Times bestselling Mother Bruce, which received the E.B. White Read Aloud Award and the Ezra Jack Keats New Illustrator Honor. He lives in Maine with his wife and kids and lots of pets. And today he will be talking about Bruce Saves the Planet. Next up, we have Charlotte Gunnufson. Charlotte is the author of Halloween Hustle and Prince and Pirate, which Kirkus called a godsend to pirate-themed story times in its starred review. Her lyrical ocean-themed bedtime book, Dream Submarine, came out this past year, and today Charlotte is here to talk about Hard Hat Hank and the Sky High Solution. We also have Brian Biggs. Brian is an author, illustrator, and designer in Philadelphia. He's currently writing and illustrating books, constantly drawing pictures, and teaching illustration at the Tyler School of Art at Temple University. He has written or illustrated more than 70 books, some of them New York Times bestsellers. We have Wendy Mass. Wendy is the New York Times bestselling author of 30 novels for young people, including Every Soul a Star, Pie in the Sky, and A Mango-Shaped Space. Her books have been translated into 26 languages and nominated for 91 state book awards. And her title that she'll be discussing today is Green Jolene and the Neighborhood Swap. And finally, for this panel, we have Kellie DuBay Gillis. Kellie grew up in Bay City, Michigan, with kids who loved to make things and to share neighborhood adventures on an old purple tandem bike. She is an environmental scientist and communications specialist with over 25 years of experience blending her passion for protecting the planet with storytelling. And Kellie's book today is If You Find a Fawn. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining me. To kick things off, I will just go around and ask you each to just give us a basic introduction to your book. so our audience kind of knows what we're talking about here. And let's kick it off with Ryan. Can you tell us a bit
Yeah,
about
sure.
Bruce Saves the Planet?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Am I showing up okay? Can you see me?
Yep, looks
Yeah.
good.
All right. Hey, my name is Ryan. And I make a bunch of books about a bear named Bruce. I'm really excited to be part of the Planet Possible program. For this Bruce book, we decided to give it a conservationist sort of bent. It's called Bruce Saves the Planet. I'm going to show you a couple pictures and talk about it a little bit. So the very first scene that shows up is on the end papers, and it's these two construction beavers who are imagining a great big factory that's going to be built in the forest. It's called Fume Core Factory and Waste Production Facility. So right there, you can tell not a great place. Um, so in this book, it's basically about Bruce trying to go on a fishing trip, but he meets some protesters on the way, and he doesn't really want to have anything to do with the protesters. So he just kind of keeps going on to his fishing trip because he's a bit of a grump. But his fishing trip doesn't go as planned because he runs into a bunch of these little beetles who wind up stealing all of his fishing bait and ruining his lunch. And then on the way back from the trip, he becomes an accidental environmental activist where he gets roped up in that group of protesters who are protesting that big factory being built. And somehow he accidentally gets roped up into going to the town hall where he gets involved in a legal argument with the town manager. And those beetles from before turn out to be an endangered species. And I don't want to give away the ending, but it does help save the whole forest. So he kind of accidentally saves the forest, even though he's very grumpy about it. And then to cap off the book at the end, there are call to action stuff you can do. And mine, all the Planet Possible books have this in it. Mine in particular is mostly about conservation and learning about the different environments around you. And I have a particular interest in wildlife biology. It's what I went to school for. So I've got a list of different endangered animals that folks might not know live near them, and what you can do to help them.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Let's go to Kelly. Can you tell us about If You Find a Fawn?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if I could see everyone participating, and I asked them, have you ever encountered a baby animal in the wild at some point in your life? I think everyone would probably raise their hand. And I think there's that moment of like, ah, and then there's that moment of, oh no, it's in trouble. And really, that was the seed for If You Find a Fawn, this idea of we have baby wildlife encounters in different places. It could be the playground for some kids at school, it could be backyards, the park, and not knowing what to do. And every May, without fail, our animal organizations run public service announcements that say, hey, if you find a fawn, leave it alone. And I thought it would just make for a really great book to empower young readers. And so I'm so grateful that it's part of the Planet Possible line. And that's what If You Find a Fawn is all about. It's a what to do for wild wanderers. And I can show you a spread that's beautifully illustrated by Pink. She is an incredible illustrator. Couldn't be with us because she is in Vietnam, but hopefully everyone can see that. The spread is where you would find a baby fledgling learning to fly. And so it really just advocates that kids trust nature, trust that animals know how to take care of themselves, and that we respect baby wildlife and let nature do its thing.
Perfect. Excuse me. Thank you very much. And I'm glad you showed that illustration because they really are stunning and these just beautifully lit images. Let's go to Wendy. Can you tell us about Green Jolene and the neighborhood swap, please?
Sure. So Green Jolene is a chapter book series. There'll be 3 books, and it's about a very spirited rising third grader named Jolene Greenfield. And as she kind of embarks on this summer of environmental change and activism, I guess you could say. And each book focuses on a different topic within the sort of environmental world. And the first one, Green Jolene and the neighborhood swap, focuses on stuff like recycling, reusing, donating, anything to keep things out of landfills, which is something Jolene feels very passionate about. She's generally very passionate about the world around her. So it was really fun kind of exploring the idea of what can you do, as a child, as a young child, to make a difference. And so I was really excited to, dive into this for this age level. And being born on Earth Day, I felt like the Planet Possible project was kind of meant to be. So I was really excited about it.
Thank you very much. And we have Charlotte here to introduce Hard Hat Hank and the Sky High Solution.
Okay, I think the easiest way for me to introduce Hank is to show just a big picture of him on the front of the book and then just read the first few pages. And it'll also give you a peek at Brian Biggs' kind of hybrid style of picture book, comic book, graphic novel that I think kids really enjoy. Okay, here's Hard Hat Hank with his hardworking crew. Hank holds up the blueprints. He knows what to do. Come on, crew, let's follow the plan. Right on. Yep, sure thing, Hank. They're revved up and ready, all set to begin. The dozer and dump truck and digger dig in. And here you see a little bit of that comic book style coming in with the different panels. First, Hank scans the plan, then he surveys the site. He finds a mistake. Several stakes aren't set right. Hey, crew, hold on. And then the whole book is about problems that crop up, even though you have the perfect blueprint, and the way that Hank is able to solve those problems. And then the trickiest problem of all comes about when two birds and their nest put a wrench in the plans. And so this just the kind of creative, comical way that everything gets solved. And then the back matter, all the books have back matter, which I love, and they're all just hands-on activities, recommended books and online resources. So this one gives kids the opportunity to do small, like kid-friendly, kid-doable things like plant some flowers that birds like to eat the seeds, plants that birds use for nesting materials, pick up litter because sometimes birds understandably put plastic and things in their nests and that's not helpful. And then and just things that you can actually offer birds to build their nests.
Great, thank you. And we'll come back and talk a bit more about the back matter later. And I'm glad you read a bit of that because your book really nails the rhythm and the rhyme in a way that a lot of people try to nail and not quite everybody does, but I think you did a great job with it. And it's got a really nice flow. I want to kind of shift into talking about the origin of these projects as they connect to Planet Possible. And let me bring in Brian here to kind of serve as a segue. But Brian, we just heard from Charlotte. You're the illustrator. So when you take us to when you, if you recall, when you first got that manuscript, what compelled you to take on that project? And then how did you develop Hank and the style for that book?
There's I mean, I remember two things about the script. One, if anybody knows anything about my illustration, I could draw construction stuff until the cows come home. It's like any excuse to get a bulldozer and a crane, I'm in. But more than that, I remember reading it, and I like to, I'll always read a script, and then I read a script out loud. And this book is so much fun to read out loud. I think for an illustrator, when you're working on a book that you didn't write, you need to like the words, you need to like the characters, you need to like the book in general. But basically, you're going to be reading those words a lot. I've probably read this more now than Charlotte has, and I think I've probably lived with it longer in some ways. So just like I think that Charlotte, that part that you read there at the beginning, where there's seeing the characters go, you got it, Hank, and they each have their own personality. it's like a hero guy and his little crew. It's like a big Batman and his little Robins running around, and then they had the two birds chasing them around. It's a delightful story, and so just for me to be able to get that and be able to make it, you know, put the pictures to it, I guess was a treat. So I jumped on it in 5 or 6 minutes after I first read it.
When you saw the manuscript, Brian, was it attached to Planet Possible yet?
You know, I went back and found out it was. It's a funny thing. I had it for quite a while, and Sylvie Frank, our editor, began asking for things. Well, this is part of Planet Possible, part of Planet Possible. And I remember writing her and saying, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "Oh my God, have I not explained this to you?" And so I went back and found the very first email she'd sent my agent, and it did mention Planet Possible, but nobody really reads those emails anyway. So we just go right to the manuscript when we get those things in the mail. So I didn't, it wasn't the first. Again, I went to construction vehicles, you know, that was kind of the other end of that. So, but no, the short answer is yes, but not, I guess it was attached, but I just didn't know it was attached.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me go back to Ryan. This
Hey,
is,
Ryan.
and we're getting into the kind of that origin with Planet Possible. This is Bruce's 15th book, I believe.
That is a great guess. I lose track of how many of them I've made. Yeah, there's been a lot.
Ish, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Why do you feel like he and Soggy Hollow were a good fit for a Planet Possible story, and what brought you to that activist sort of storyline?
Yeah, I went to school to be a wildlife biologist, actually an ecologist, a wildlife ecologist. So conservation and ecology have always been really important to me. It was my backup career. I was going to go study grizzly bears and write about it, but this is a safer career probably. So I had this series about Bruce. I'd been talking with Sylvie, also the editor for me on this. And she'd been talking about this Planet Possible idea for a long time and asked if I thought Bruce would be a good fit. And I've known, well, I say I've known Bruce for a long time. I make Bruce, but Bruce and I have been working together for many years. And I feel like I can put him in almost any situation and he somewhat writes the story himself and I'm just along for the ride. So I thought, well, let me think about some sort of conservation-based idea. And so this just popped in my head. It was a little bit based on something that happened in my childhood. We have a bunch of woods behind my childhood home, and we had all these trails and lots of animals lived out there. I remember watching a family of foxes when I was a kid. They would like every year they would have a new litter, and there'd be all these babies. And then we found out there was going to be a luxury condo complex that was going to be built, and our whole neighborhood banded together we went to like all these meetings and town meetings, and I was probably 12 at the time, but I just remember being kind of wrapped up in this whole thing and trying to stop this development from happening. Didn't work. They still built the condos. We at least were able to get them to cut out from a 17 unit to like I think it was like a 10 unit, but the woods are still there. They're just smaller than they used to be. But I feel like I wanted to give that real story a happier ending, and so I rewrote it.
If only Bruce had been there.
Right.
Thank you. Wendy, tell us about creating Jolene and her voice. What was most important about her that you wanted to communicate to kids?
Well, I wanted Jolene to be somebody that the reader would root for. She's spunky and she's sweet and she has a great sense of independence and drive. And like I said, she really cares about a lot of things and feels, you know, maybe a little bit helpless. Like, what could she do? She's just one person. And when the book starts, she's feeling kind of lost. Her best friend and next door neighbor has moved away, so she's kind of facing this lonely summer. And I brought some new friends into the mix for her, and that kind of started her realizing how much stuff we have when she sees her next door neighbor moving in with all these boxes, and she realizes how much stuff she has. And that kind of sparks the idea for the neighborhood swap meet. And of course, things don't, you know, go according to plan. And that's something I wanted to put into her character too, that she kind of acts before she thinks, which is something a lot of, if not most kids do. So I, you know, was hoping that the reader would kind of go along for the ride and kind of learn things without realizing that they were learning, because hopefully they were just having fun with the story. And it was really fun for me to see the artwork when it came in. Billy Young just did such a wonderful job. And here's like my favorite picture of his. It's a picture where Jolene is laying on the couch and her dog Webster is on her, and she's like feeling, wait, let me see if we can get that. She's feeling kind of bummed that she hasn't heard back from the rest of the neighbors to see if the swap meet is going to happen at all. So that's one of the fun things is getting to see, you know, your words come to life like that. And, you know, as you know, we don't really generally see that until it's really far along the process. So I think that really helps bring the whole story to life in such a lovely way.
Yeah, I feel like chapter book illustrations are taken for granted sometimes. Billy did a really great job on that book. So thank you for showing that. Kelly and Charlotte, this is for both of you, but I'll start with Kelly. But I believe both If You Find a Fawn and Hard Hat Hank, it sounds like we're submitted originally as traditional submissions from your agents before there was a Planet Possible connection. If that's true,
Very true.
uh, once they were matched up, what did you think? And did you have to go in and make any changes to the text to suit it to the program?
I love this story because it's such a roller coaster ride. So it was submitted to Sylvie by my agent, and it was a big no. And the reason being is because, you know, she came back, she's like, Disney doesn't do these kinds of books, right? And my heart sunk, she's like, I love the manuscript, but it's just not for us because it's not what we do. So it was like a heartbreaker, right? That's like the worst thing to hear. And then to fast forward 6 months, and she reaches out to my agent, is like, hey, is that manuscript still available? We're doing this thing. I'm starting this new, you know, line of books. So that was like the best email ever. So yeah, it was sort of kind of ready for Planet Possible. It's just Planet Possible didn't exist at the time we submitted it. So I feel so fortunate that the stars realigned and a no became a yes, and it was picked up for this. And the only thing that really had to change was the title. It was submitted as If You Find a Baby. And they, I think, wanted to make it a little bit clearer that it was about baby animals and kind of what the gist of the whole book was. And so it became If You Find a Fawn. And we did have to tinker with back matter, but I know you're going to get to that a little bit. But it came in with its own set of back matter. And we just adjusted it to fit the Planet Possible model.
That's great. That's one of the best rejection stories I've heard.
It's the best. I hope for more of those.
Right. Charlotte, what about you?
When I heard from Planet Possible, it was not submitted as to Planet Possible in that way, like, oh, here's an environmental book. I think someone passed it to Sylvie, like, oh, hey, here's something that might fit. So I was so thrilled and just like so hopeful, like the it'd be like on a list that was just filled with like fun solution oriented books, and you know, here we are. So it all worked out. And the story, I checked this morning and I have a list of called hard hat story ideas dating back from 2014. So it's a story that I've wanted to tell for this. I had the character in mind for a long time, and a story I wanted to tell. And it didn't start out as an environmental story, but environmental themes just kind of crop up in all my stories. I'm like, oh, there it is again. You know, it's just kind of what I care about, what I think about. So those themes just kind of crop up.
Yeah.
So I was just thrilled, really.
Yeah, just a match made in heaven. So speaking of Sylvie, the story that was passed over to me was that Planet Possible was inspired by a drawing from, I believe, her 6-year-old niece. The drawing said climate change, and there was a pro and con column, and the pros were, of course, blank, and under cons it said the animals are suffering. Um, and so she just sounds like this perfect poster child for this program and its audience. So I just wanted to quickly ask each of you, um, about the program as a whole and your book in particular, do you have a particular reader or audience in mind? And maybe we can start with Wendy on this one.
Really, it's, it's for the kids who maybe wouldn't pick up a book about environmentalism, or maybe they just wouldn't know enough about it to know to pick up a book about it. So, telling a story where it's embedded in it, but hopefully not sort of hitting you over the head too much, was really the goal. So that's what I hope will happen. That's who I was picturing.
Yeah. Ryan, what about you?
Yeah, for me, very much the same. But I also I think it's great to get kids invested in nature. I feel like, there's so much screen time and so much, there's so much to compete with, and I like the idea of putting a piece of nature at stake in the book, and so the kids kind of have an invested interest, like, oh, I really hope the forest gets saved, and that might make them in the long run think about the habitats around them that might, need some help as well.
Yeah. Brian, did you have a particular audience in mind as you were working on this?
6-year-old me. Other than that, it's just again,
Would 6-year-old you have been would these have been new ideas or new concepts for you?
well, as far as sure, I think that when you're watching, 6-year-old me was the guy that was watching a skyscraper being built in Little Rock and wondering if there was a bird nest on top. So, it's such a specific thing that Charlotte put in the story, but it was so, universal as well that, what happens? I mean, I can imagine that either my kids asking me when they were young or me asking my dad, what happens if they build this building and they find, a bird's nesting on top? It just seems such a natural thing. Why hasn't someone made a book about this before? So, but I always illustrate to 6-year-old me. I just, it's the books I wanted to read when I was a kid.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Charlotte, what about you?
Well, that's thrilling because 6-year-old me grew up in the Midwest where I still live, and so we were just like running through the woods. There's no skyscrapers. Um, so I go back to a quote from Jacques Cousteau, which I have up in my office, and it says, "People protect what they love." And I think that goes to what Wendy and Ryan have said as well, and Brian. So I think kids have some worries about climate change and about the state of the environment. And I think what they do is they hear about the problems, but they don't hear about the solutions or the people who are working on this, or the ways that they can participate in kid ways. And so I hope that my book and other books like entertain, they're fun, kids get into it, but there's also like, hey, there's some good leaders and solution-oriented people, and here's how you can join the team.
Yeah. Kelly, it sounds like this has been a part of your work for a number of years. Is this a new audience for you, or how did you kind of approach this audience as you were working on this?
Well, my typical everyday audience in my job is usually like the regulated community, or, like fun core or fume core definitely would be like somebody I'd work with every day, like trying to like regulate and tell them to do the right thing. So the idea of me like stepping back and writing this for a kid level, not like a bureaucrat or a regulated community, that's a different thing. And like to Charlotte's point where you said worry, I mean, I think a lot of, for me, when I write for kids, it's born out of the worry that I have for the environment. I carry it with me every day in the work that I do. And I agree, Charlotte, that I think kids do feel that worry. It's in the news so much, they're feeling the impacts of climate change right away. And I think there's something to be said about everyday environmentalism. This idea that it isn't something you have to go to school for necessarily. Like we can do it every day in simple ways, and just showing kids, opening the door to what some of those simple ways are. And it can be just like making a more hospitable habitat for the animals in your backyard as the days heat up by putting out a bowl of water. Like it's as easy as that. And I think, simplifying it for kids and demystifying it and not making it so heavy is really, really important.
Yeah. We really only have a minute left. Let me go back around, and I'll stay with you, Kelly, since we're kind of halfway on the topic, and just to talk about the back matter a little more. So again, each book in Planet Possible has a really nice, detailed double spread of a call to action essentially, for kids that they can do in their home or in their community or beyond. So let's go around, beginning with Kelly, and just hear a little bit about what's in there.
Yeah, so for me, for at home, it's the idea of like have healthy habitat, skipping fertilizer, making sure that we're doing things that create habitat that you could actually attract wildlife to your backyard and allow them to have their young. We have habitat fragmentation, and with climate change, they don't have access to food and water the way that they need. So we can create that environment. But then also how to let people know that we should leave animals where we find them, and maybe create a PSA in your school or your community. And then raising money for organizations, and also becoming familiar with wildlife rehabilitators, so that if you do find a baby animal that does need care, that you know who to call and you connect with your local nature center. So I have all of those things in my back matter.
Great. Ryan, you already showed it to us. Do you have anything you want to add about it?
Yeah, I had this one thing in the back matter where it was suggesting to young readers to go find a spot either in their yard or just outside their like you could even look at a little tiny crack in the pavement, not on the road, obviously. Don't study in the road, but on the walkway or something, and just watch it for a while, and just everywhere you look there is an ecosystem. So like you could one thing I talked about was just like going out, picking a little patch, watching it, see what sort of animals show up. And I think just the more you know, the more interesting life becomes and the more fascinating life is. I also have a list of different endangered species. The beetles that saved the day in this book are a real thing called the cobblestone tiger beetle. And they live in Maine, where I live. They also live in other parts of New England, and they live on very specific little tiny like just little rocks on the edges of streams, and they're very endangered, and they're only found in a few places. And they're really fun to say, cobblestone tiger beetle. So
Thank you. And Wendy, I'm sorry, let me go to Charlotte. Forgive me. I'm losing my place here. Charlotte, we got a glimpse of yours already as well, but do you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, I really love the back matter because it's like you said, call to action. It's like activities that kids can do and do at home. I feel like I'm a former teacher, and I know that kids learn best by doing, and also creating things or building things builds confidence in kids, and I think that can be really empowering. And also, it's just fun and engaging. At an upcoming library visit, we're actually going to make our own potting soil, and with, like eggshells and coffee grounds. And then we're going to use, repurpose milk cartons and plant plants, and then we'll have them at the library and see how they grow. So I'm very excited about that. I think kids will really enjoy it.
Awesome, thank you. And Wendy, tell us about your back matter.
Well, since this series is for older kids, or who are reading it on their own, it was a great opportunity to get to put back matter in here, because you don't often get to mix sort of fiction and then have some nonfiction and really talk directly to the reader. And like was said before, it's a great opportunity to kind of expand on the things in the book, and also to introduce some things that didn't make their way in the book. Things like e-waste. What do we do with all of the electronics and stuff that we have? And kids are certainly amassing a large pile of those themselves. So we can add that kind of stuff to the back matter, and some, kind of more information on where they can go for things, and what they can do in their home, and then in their community, and then in the future, in their lives. And one of the things that I really found, that has stuck with me from doing the research for the back matter and in the book in general, was this documentary on recycling, where they were saying, we go to a garbage can and we think, okay, I'm just going to throw this away. And there's no like magical place called away. It goes either into the land or the air or the water. And that's something that now every time I can't throw something in the trash without thinking of that. And that's just something that I'm hoping, will kind of stick with the readers too.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone. I want to echo one thing Wendy said earlier. I think it was Wendy, which is that these books all have are all tied to this purpose, of course, and they come with this call to action. But they all are legitimately entertaining, beautifully written, beautifully illustrated books that stand alone in their own right as well. So that's two good reasons to take a look at all of these books. So again, thank you all. We're unfortunately out of time. We have a whole another panel to get to, but I will do a quick rundown of your books again. I believe they're all out. We've got Bruce Saves the Planet, Hard Hat Hank and the Sky High Solution, Green Jolene and the Neighborhood Swap, and If You Find a Fawn. Thanks, everybody. And I will try to shift gears here to our next panel, which is graphic novels, 3 exciting new series. I will be introducing C.S. Jennings, the author and illustrator of Pet Shop Racers, which is due out in October, I believe. So C.S. Jennings is the illustrator of over 24 books for kids. He also works in the animation world as animation lead for Richard Linklater's A Scanner Darkly, and assistant animation director on the director's newest film, Apollo 10.5, and was assistant animation director on both seasons of Amazon's Undone. A Texas native, he makes his home in Austin, where he bikes and hikes, wandering the hill country looking for inspiration. And again, he'll be talking about Pet Shop Racers today. We also have Greg Foley. Award-winning author-illustrator Greg Foley launched his work in children's books in 2007 with his Charlotte Zolotow award-winning debut book, Thank You Bear, which has since been published in 8 languages internationally. He now designs and creative directs Visionaire, V Magazine, V-Man, V-Files, and is based in Austin, Texas, and New York City. And he will be talking about the new Dex Dingo books. And finally, for this panel, we have Kon Tan. Kon was raised in the Bronx, and from an early age, he was obsessed with dinosaurs, monster movies, and superheroes. Unfortunately, one day he grew up, but he was lucky to find work as a teacher, bookseller, and animator. He is afraid of the ocean, me too, but proud to have conquered his fear of heights and riding a bike. And he will be talking about We're All Gonna Die-nosaur. Thank you for joining me for this second panel, everybody. And once again, as by way of introduction, I will ask each of you to just tell us about your new series and then what this first book is about. So let's start with CS.
Hello, C.S. Jennings, and this is my first series that I have written and illustrated. It's called Pet Shop Racers. The name's in the title. And the first 2 books are out this year. A 3rd book will follow next year. The first book, we are introduced to Ham. He's a hamster who has a pretty good life. He sleeps, he eats, but by night, he races with the other animals in the pet shop in hamster balls. Life's good. He finds his value in winning those races, and he wins those races a lot. So he's got his friendship group, his values of who he is. Everything's really great, right? Until a ferret moves in, who, as you can see, is completely disorderly. Ham does not find him entertaining in the least. The other thing about the ferret, his name is Shelby, is that he refuses to sort of follow the status quo, riding on top of the hamster balls instead of inside. The inevitable happens. They're next door to a hobby shop in which they discover the cars. And so the animals move from racing in those hamster balls to racing in cars. And the first outing doesn't really go all that well. So, but they still love it. That's awesome. So that's the first book, and that themes of that book are friendship and your identity within your friend group. Quickly, the second book, I'll go faster. The guys are at the end of the first book are a team. They've teamed up now in a racing team, and everything's going great there, right? got our status quo until someone new shows up, and it's Ham's sister, who is mentioned in the first book. His name's Ham, her name is Star, Ham Star. This is dumb anyway. There's a lot of so dumb it's cool in my series, which I also find really fun. There's hugs, but when she wants to race with him, she's his hero, his older sister. Then we have like the split in that friendship. And it's then working out sort of like that balance of who you love, who you are, what happens when friendships are splintered, and then also like working out that sibling thing, because of course he adores her, but there's stuff, right? Sibling stuff. So that's Pet Shop Racers. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you.
Welcome.
Let's go to Greg. Tell us about Dex Dingo, which, by the way, I believe is due in September on shelves.
Yeah, my name is Greg Foley. This is my debut graphic novel series. The first book is out now. It's Dex Dingo, World's Best Greatest Ever Inventor. And in September of this year, the second book, and this is a cover preview, The World's Best Greatest Ever Archaeologist, will be out. And I'm just finishing the artwork in color for this. Dex Dingo is a half Filipino fourth grade dingo from Austin, Texas, which is where I grew up. And it's loosely based on my childhood, except that there's a lot more magic that happens. Dex, like most kids, wants very badly to be the world's best, greatest ever at something. And he loves making lists. And on the back cover of the hardcover, there is his list that is basically, it's kind of like a My Name is Ed, where he made a list of what he thought were the best jobs ever, different than many of the other kids in his class. They got an assignment to show and tell, what would you be when you grow up? And I remember when I was a kid, I was obsessed with drawing, and I loved drawing cars, and I kept revisiting this book that was about customized cars, and I thought I'd be a car customizer. But of course, I didn't end up doing that. And likewise, in the first book, Dex wants to invent something, ironically, that's very similar to the Planet Possible thing. He wants to save the world by getting rid of all of the trash, and he makes nanobots. And the nanobots are too successful, and they start eating everything. And not to give things away, but it works out. He doesn't want to be an inventor at the end of the book, and so he revisits his list. And what I'm hoping is we'll keep going down the list. And the beauty of lists is you can change them. So he can add things, he can take things off. He takes things off every book. And that's Dex Dingo.
Perfect. Thank you. And let's hear from Kon about We're All Gonna Die-nosaur.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kon Tan, and unfortunately, I do not have a copy of the book to show. But We're All Gonna Die-nosaur is about a kid pterodactyl named Terry, and his nightmares keep coming true. And one night, he just has the worst nightmare he's ever had, where he is a skeleton inside a museum exhibition about dinosaurs going extinct. And he asks his parents if this is true. Can dinosaurs go extinct? And they just laugh. They're like, Terry, pterodactyls can fly. There's no problem we can't fly away from. But the problem is that Terry doesn't know how to fly. So the first book is all about him getting over his fear of flying while trying to save his baby brother, who's still just an egg, who's run off into the big city chasing after a kite.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I want to ask each of you kind of about the origins of your concept and how it grew into the series. These are all pretty wild ideas, in the best way. And maybe we could start with Greg on this one. You kind of touched on it a bit, but how did Dex become this big project for you?
Well, I had done 11 picture books with diminishing returns. I had done a lot of them, and I never, I mean, I aspired to do a graphic novel. I've always been a fan, like probably all of us, like just of characters, character design. And I was a designer originally, so I did characters, but I didn't really think about how to write until I revisited writing workshops and got really obsessed with the idea of publishing a picture book first. But at a certain point, I was advised like to just like break the, break my own boundaries and imagine stitching 3 picture books together. Well, there you've got, if you're so comfortable with 32, 42 pages. And so I thought, oh, okay. And um, my agent at the time showed me, great things like, the Jedi Academy and all of these other books that were out there that break all of the rules. There's like some prose, some panels, some things that the character's looking at, notes that they've written, And so I just went back to the drawing board, and of course, you write what you know. And I revisited that magical time. For me, it was really 4th grade was this moment where everything was possible and my imagination was on fire. And so just adding a little bit of that magic in, I did a pitch, of the character, and I knew I wanted to do the thing of like world's best greatest ever. And originally the series was called that until I realized we better call it the character name because no kid's gonna ask for where's the next world's best greatest ever book. And so I bit off more than I could chew. Basically, it took me so long to finish the first book, and I'm just finishing up the artwork for the second book, which comes out, in September. But it gets faster as you go, and now I'm totally into it. But I think the next thing I do may be something that's more along the lines of a Wimpy Kid, where it's more prose and spot illustrations.
Yeah. This is a detail, but do you want to tell the audience about the WoW pages?
Oh yeah, thank you. The WoW pages, and it's so funny. I did a reading the other day, and this kid, a heckler, called out. He goes, "It's a ripoff of Flipperama," and I'm like, "Well, yes and no. Some of the WoW pages animate. You can flip them, and they will animate literally, but others will do things like reveal reveal a difference. Like here, this one is a map and it reveals all of the ways that they try. And in the coming book, The Archaeologist, I have one where you hold the page up to the light and it literally reveals what's inside that they're trying to look at. And others where you enter rooms or you see the literal front and back of things. I spent 25 years designing publications and obsessing on what you could and couldn't do with printed matter. And so with the WoW pages, I just want to leave it open that we can play tricks with the printed page.
Yeah, it's a really cool feature. Let's go over to Kon. Again, we're talking about kind of the origin of the concept and how it grew into what it is now.
Yeah,
tell us.
sorry. I mean, like all kids, you always love dinosaurs until maybe I think you grow a little bit too old and then you grow out of them. But I think Jurassic Park hit me right at that age, so it just kept on going. But if we have a moment, I'd like to read a poem, and I remembered this because I kind of grew up with it. My dad used to read it to us, and it's a huge inspiration for the book. It's by Ogden Nash, and it's called Fossils. At midnight in the museum hall, the fossils gathered for a ball. There were no drums or saxophones, but just the clatter of their bones. A rolling, rattling, carefree circus of mammoth polkas and mazurkas. Pterodactyls and brontosauruses sang ghostly prehistoric choruses. Amid the mastodontic wassail, I caught the eye of one small fossil. Cheer up, sad world, he said and winked. It's kind of fun to be extinct. Um, I just love the imagery in that poem. It's always lived with me. And the idea that dinosaurs could somehow be aware of their own extinction um, just always stuck with me. And I think it was when I read Aaron Blabey's The Bad Guys book. And it was like a lightning bolt to me. I was like, oh, I can do a graphic novel for kids. This is an awesome format. Wow. It bowled me over. And it was just the push and inspiration I needed.
Exactly. The Bad Guys was another series that was like permission to, you don't have to draw like your picture books. You could draw looser.
Nice. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Kon. That was awesome. And let's go ask CS the same question about the origins.
Pet Shop Racers comes from just sort of the amalgam. I think all of us, like what we're talking about here, like our childhood loves and our experiences. I grew up in West Texas. I live in Austin, but I grew up in West Texas among sort of the culture of monster trucks and, you know, literal tractor pulls. It's like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? Let's go watch a tractor pull some stuff. See how who's got the strongest tractor. And that sort of transformed into a love of vintage racing, and so I had these two characters. One was a bull and one was a horse. And the bull, he was the country guy, right? He's driving his pickup truck, his monster truck, and the guy next door is a horse, and he drives a Ferrari because also Ferrari is a horse. And as I was talking through just concepts with my agent, the thing that I remembered that I got so excited about was as a kid, like your car, everything's a racetrack. You know, your couch is a racetrack. The linoleum floors like rolling around. And I thought, okay, what I would really love to do is emulate that experience that I had and loved as a kid. But a horse and a cow are way too big for that. So I had already a series that I pitched a billion years ago. I had a hamster that I pulled out of that, I put into this, and then it is the questions of, you know, I don't want to cover what we're going to talk about, but then it's the questions like why does he race? Why do hamsters race? Why do they have this need, right? And so, like, because they want to win? Like, no, it's not enough. And so it really gets into the identity of the other thing that I just is really important to me, which is like finding yourself in a social group and who you are when the new guy shows up and challenges your self-perception and your values. But yeah, that's where it came from, and all kinds of like the Dukes of Hazzard. I'm an 80s kid, so just stuff jumping and crashing and just goofy 80s car action and fun. So that's where it comes from.
Yeah, excuse me. You've each sort of mentioned some inspirations from like the bad guys, Dukes of Hazzard. Because there's a lot in common among the three of these books, the energy of them, the humor. So I'm curious what'll happen if I ask you each about your influences. Let's start with CS on this one. Whether it's in comics or animation or wherever, were there anything else that really inspired this project or your work in general?
Yeah, for sure. I think all of us are the same. Well, most of us are the same that we picked up the crayon and we never put it down, right? And so it's the language that we speak. For me, Garfield was huge. I loved 1010. As I got older, like I really, yes, I do work in animation. And so I wanted to bring the cinematic into this. I really wanted to have scenes where, you know, we're pulling the camera way back so you can see the size of these characters. And I would love to be able to be like just list off a whole bunch of directors who, I mean, I do have heroes, right? The Coen brothers and Wes Anderson and sort of those guys. But yeah, I think as a kid, Richard Scarry, obviously Disney, Looney Tunes, like all of those. And then I get into again sort of the vintage racing stuff. Shelby is the ferret's name. He's a reference to Carroll Shelby, the car designer. So even though this is goofy, funny, I've worked into some things you actually could like write STEM around if you wanted to. So, but yeah, those are my influences, just the goofy funness of just comic books, etc.
Yeah. What about you, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, you bring it in nicely. It's all the stuff that we have seen, heard, watched. For me, I would just sit in my bed and read those compendiums of Peanuts or Beetle Bailey or any of the, you know, dime store little compendiums. And I would just really enjoy that time in the sun by my window, just looking at comics, you know. But then beyond that, you get older and you start to really obsess on these kind of iconic images. And again, I spent decades in design and branding where everything is about what's the perfect image that will convey this story, and then about 15, 20 years ago, everything commercially became about we're storytellers, we're telling stories. And it's like, yeah, well, yes and no. And then you get into like, well, okay, how do you cobble these things together to tell a story? And picture books, now I look back on it, while I'd still would like to do some picture books, graphic novels are just such a particular art form that can do things that other forms can't do. The same way that animation can do things that, film, photographed things and editing have a certain limit until you start employing CGI. Animation is so magical because it can just mess with time so beautifully in a way, And I think graphic novels are the same. There's just so much more undiscovered territory.
Yeah. What about you, Kon? You mentioned the bad guys in Jurassic
Oh
Park.
yeah, I mean, like I have so many inspirations: Calvin and Hobbes,
Mhm.
Spider-Man, Jeff Smith's Bone. But one
Mhm.
I want to really talk about, which is a deep cut, and I only realized this a couple of months ago, and it really kind of blew me away when I thought about it, is Mad Magazine.
Yeah.
Like I even looked through it before I could really read the things, but the satire, the zaniness, like the margin, the little drawings, like
Mhm.
it was a book that had everything. Every page was like a new experience. And I wanted to sort of recreate the feeling of flipping through Mad Magazine on every page where like you wouldn't, I mean, it's one story, but you really wouldn't know what's coming next. And there would be surprise on every page. Um, and I wish that sort of energy would come back somehow. I don't know, like the magazine doesn't exist anymore. I don't think so. But just flipping through it recently, I was like, wow, this is huge for me. And I didn't even realize it's in my DNA, you know?
That's amazing. I haven't thought about Mad Magazine
Yeah,
in
Mad,
so
Mad,
long.
big influence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I love what you said, that it is that different feeling every time you turn the spread. So, so cool.
Yeah, I can still feel that mad energy. Like it's still echoing in my head.
Pure pulp.
We've actually only got a couple minutes. I wanna ask this question about the audience. Whenever I bring this question up, I say like, you know, graphic novels, graphic readers are having a moment, but it's really not a moment anymore. Like it's booming and it's going to continue to boom, and that's kind of the world we live in now. Um, I'm curious what you think it is that brings young readers to these kinds of books, as well as what draws you to them as creators, specifically in this age range. And we can start with Kon on this one.
What do I think brings readers to these books? I think, it's a visual medium, and I was just always a kid who wanted to look at awesome pictures. I loved, before I knew what an artist was, I just knew what I liked and which images were different and which really popped in my mind. So I think just, I was just image obsessed, and I would just go gravitate towards whatever sort of picture made me laugh, like wowed me, was surprising, was like drawn really well, even though I didn't understand what like a well-drawn drawing was. You feel it in your gut, right? And I think there's like it's really a miracle that we're able to connect with our inner child and draw. Like it's our literally when we're drawing, it's like our 5, 6, 7 year old selves are drawing these images for ourselves, like was mentioned earlier. And that's what draws me to it is that we get to express the entire breadth of our lives from childhood to now and create with that intent, and that's magical, and to be able to share that with kids, I think that's just amazing.
Yeah. What about you, Greg?
Well, it's just the thing. A picture is worth 1,000 words, and you marry the two, and it's crazy. But the first, where it starts, and I think where a person who can and continues to draw, because I think everybody can draw. I think that starts to become some of the most innovative stuff. People who aren't naturally, you know, illustrators, it becomes that thing of second language. You hear the most interesting turns of phrase and new words invented and ways of saying things by people who don't speak the language, you know? So I encourage everybody draw if you can. Especially as authors, we know it's easier to sell work when you do both. And there's so many authors who say like, oh, I have this idea for a thing and I have this illustrator friend. And it's like, no, they're not going to entertain your illustrator friend. Just do a great job. And why don't you try drawing it yourself? You know, what was that I think that, what was the question again? What draws the audience?
Well, it's just such a booming category.
Yeah,
I
it's
guess.
not going to go away. The thing is, it was just like, I think that comics got a really bad rap for decades, and that has been dispelled. It's been completely dispelled. Because if you can just fall in love with literature at all, you're just going to go deeper in. And the beauty of the marriage of illustration with word is that it opens up, you know, all the more possibilities. So
Yeah. Anything to add, CS?
Yeah, I think there were a couple of things that I would speak to. I think that's very brilliantly stated. For me, like the writing process, when I sat down, I discovered that I found so much more in my scripts when for typing, was just drawing. You know, I'd find the visual jokes. And I think the visual part is the really important thing. I had mild dyslexia as a kid. And so reading didn't come easy to me. And I think that's one of the reasons that these books and why graphic novels appeal is because they're able to engage with the story without perhaps being able to read the words, you know, especially being in this segment of it, right? Where it's the early reader, you know, that's really, as a kid, like this would have been such a gift to me because I just couldn't make sense of the actual letters. So I think that's where the importance, and I think that's what draws to, and I think also as both Kon and Greg have said, like it's just a playground and they get to be in our playground and we can all have a great time together. And so I think that's why it's here to stay. That's why I think it's so powerful. And gosh, I mean, that's why I just love it. It's my favorite thing to do, even though I have picture books coming out. But yeah, this all day, all
Yeah.
day.
Thank
sure.
you. Thank you all for answering that so eloquently. I'm sorry that we are a little over time, so I have to say bye, but thank you again for joining us. I'll say again, we've got Pet Shop Racers by C.S. Jennings. We've got Dex Dingo, World's Best Greatest Ever Inventor by Greg Foley, and We're All Gonna Die-nosaur by Kon Tan. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
Ron.
And I will do a little wrapping up here. Again, thank you to all our panelists for making the time today. Tomorrow, all attendees will receive an email containing links to a certificate of completion and the video recording. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit booklistonline.com/webinars, where you can view archives of past webinars and register for upcoming ones like those you see here. You can also find out about the latest webinars on our social channels. So you can visit us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and now Blue Sky. That's where everyone's going. And just a note that we are no longer on X. So please find us on these other channels for the latest Booklist news and updates. Booklist is back with a new series of free Readers Advisory workshops on Wednesday, March 12th. Join us for 3 sessions led by library experts in the field focusing on genre blending in adult and YA titles, nonfiction readers advisory, and hot tips for hand selling. All sessions will be recorded, and to be sure you receive the recording and other workshop resources, sign up on our website. New year, new website. Booklist is thrilled to share our newly designed website with an enhanced search engine, new recommendation resources, special content for ALA members, and so much more. Head over to booklistonline.com and start exploring. And speaking of new content for ALA members, a couple more of these. We are thrilled to announce that the digital version of Booklist Reader, the monthly readers advisory magazine from the editors of Booklist, is now an ALA member benefit. Head over to our new site to start reading. And if you're not already a Booklist subscriber, you will use your ALA membership ID to sign in. Attention, all library workers, educators, booksellers, and students. We have a special subscription offer exclusive to webinar attendees. Subscribe to Booklist now and stay on top of the latest books, glean readers' advisory guidance, and get collection development advice through print and digital editions of Booklist and access to Booklist Online. Plus, our Booklist subscription now comes with free digital and shareable copies of our new product for patrons, Booklist Reader. Scan the QR code if it's there, or visit our website for more details. And finally, thank you for joining us for today's webinar. One more huge thank you to all of our panelists and to our sponsor, Disney Publishing. This concludes today's webinar. See you next time.